welcome to the May 1st, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I'm First Selectman Colin Mull, and I call this meeting to order. If everyone would please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to open up the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment in the room? All right, is there any public comment on Zoom? Any public comment on Zoom? All right, seeing none. Item number 3 is approval of the minutes from the April 3rd, 2024 public hearing special meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
At the hearing tonight, I move they be adopted as drafted.
All right, the motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I'll just point out that Selectman Shavitz is not here today. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from the April 17th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
This is Kathy Harrington. I move they be adopted as drafted with one change on page 4 with Selectman Mahoney's comments on line 2. It says had work, and it should be hard work when he was discussing Christine Sinopoli's work with the Library Commission.
Thank you.
The motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 5 is discussion of town right-of-way ordinance. So you guys received a summary sheet and the policy created by DPW Director Lee Corbett to request that we create a town right-of-way permit and ordinance. The ordinance is designed to better keep track of construction performed on our roads, along with quality control and inspections that have not been required by the town previously. This will hopefully prevent unnecessary work to fix poor quality construction done by contractors or utility companies in the future. So Lee, thanks for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You want to explain this more, and if these guys have any questions?
Yeah, so I was just looking through our town ordinances, and obviously being the Director of Public Works, first thing that comes to mind is roadways, and seen plenty of, my 15 years in town, plenty of jobs done where the road's patched afterwards, and then we get a sinkhole, and then the DPW is out fixing that on taxpayer dime, which is completely unfair to the taxpayers. So I basically did some looking around at what other towns were doing, and then added some stuff that I thought were missing from some other town stuff, and came up with a new, I guess this is going to be an ordinance from my understanding, of basically a permit and a fee, and the fee really won't even cover the amount of time that I will personally have to go out and inspect this work, but it's something back to the town, but it's also helping protect our roadways. So one other thing I did want to bring up about this, and what you've all talked about, is if we pave a brand new road, I've seen this a lot of times too, and then somebody comes in within the first 6 months or a year and cuts the brand new road open. I'd like to see something where, unless it's an emergency situation, where we don't allow that for the first year. Because it's just kind of counterproductive to what we're trying to do with building a new road. We do provide the residents with a list of roads when we're going to pave them, so they have time to prepare for that. So I think that would be a good thing to possibly add to this as well.
And Derek, you and I had discussed it. Why would we make this an ordinance rather than a policy?
Sure, so there's nothing in the statutes that specifically allows you to charge a fee for this, and quite frankly, if you look at the surrounding towns, almost every town has an ordinance as it relates to roadway construction. So, I mean, it's common practice. Contractors sort of expect that they're gonna have to do this. I had, the Windsor Locks one, for instance, is just a couple of paragraphs. It's been on the books for since 1940, and then was amended in 1957. So this is, I mean, extremely commonplace. Enfield has a little more detailed of one, but essentially, there are some common elements that you see across the board, which is, taking out a permit before you do the work, number one. posting a bond. Number two, in case any of the work has to be redone or until it's inspected. And three, fines and fees involved as well. So, I mean, it falls completely under the municipal powers, but I do think it needs to be articulated before we can just pass a policy with respect to that. So, the degrees to which we need to bond, things like that, I mean, I would defer to Lee on, you have a better sense of what it would cost to repair those. A big impetus for this, and I think it's worth noting, is that there was an issue on Hill Street over the winter that required, essentially emergency work to be done. And we have, right or wrong, we have lost a lot of sort of institutional knowledge about how these things operate. For years, Jerry Turbot, God bless him, had a Rolodex in his head about, when the work was done, how it was done, how it needed to be repaired. And that's obviously, Jerry's retired and we don't have sort of the ability to make a phone call anymore and determine how the road was done previously. So, a lot of this work, is on file. It takes a lot of work for Lee, for town engineer to go through, to look at the road maps and things like that. And this is a good use of resources, I think, for the town to set up a procedure to formalize this as moving forward. As I've said to you many, many times, the knock in Suffield is, well, why do we do it this way? Because we always have, right? And for things like this, I mean, I really think it's important to get to the year 2024 on.
So we actually need to create something more in writing for this then, right? What we have is just like the permit.
No, there's specifics on here, specific conditions, yeah, all that's part of this. Yeah, the call before you dig number, meaning that they've called to make sure it's marked so they don't start just digging somewhere and break a line and then someone loses power or a cable or, so all that's, I kind of made sure that all that was in here. They have to, the description of work, they have to do a drawing, so all that's, information's on here. Work hours, they can't start before a certain time in the morning. They can't pile up stuff on the road, which comes to my second part of the add to the permit, things I would like to see added to the permit ordinance.
And I think what we can do is actually have a much smaller permit ordinance and then refer to the permit that's created by the DPW director. And we can probably put some language in there that says, on a, every couple of year basis, you get it approved by the Board of Selectmen or something along those lines. So, it's constantly looked at and updated and things like that.
Yeah, we're just trying to protect our road and our infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, Lee. I like what the town attorney just suggested, where in terms of the ordinance, we keep that short and sweet, just essentially bare minimum, because the ordinance is more difficult to deal with modifying. And
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then the permit itself will have the detail in it.
Yeah.
You don't have any questions for Lee? I mean, I did send you guys the add-ons that he was requesting. So I don't know if you want to go over that.
Yeah, I'd like to go over it, make sure everyone knows. Has the entire board been able to review that?
It's the one that said ROW.
Yep,
Yeah.
this is added to all of
Yeah.
these.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So the first was, no material to be placed upon roadways or sidewalks by residents or contractors. This shall include but not limited to mulch, stone, dirt, sand, gravel, lumber, logs, brush, stumps, pallets, or material or any other material that may cause a safety issue or deteriorate the roadway. So what we're trying to stop here is, I just saw a job happen across the street from my house where they came in with multiple triaxle loads of crushed stone, dropped them right in our roadway, and then used the curb as a backdrop and came in with a machine and were pushing up against our curb. And I can't stop that right now. So any damage that gets done to the road, they're gone, and guess whose responsibility it is? Taxpayers of the town to get that fixed. So I don't think that's right, so I'd like to cover that in this. Number two, while we're on talking about stuff on the roadways, no snow may be pushed or thrown on or across the roadways or onto sidewalks by residents or contractors. That's a safety issue. You know, everybody can figure out a way to get their snow back into their yard somehow without going across the street and leaving strips that turn to ice, and then our snowplows hit them, and our truck drivers feel like they just got into a crash every time that happens. Number three, no paint, temporary or permanent, may be put onto roadways or sidewalks except to mark for call before you dig. So we don't want people making basketball courts or any other symbols on a roadway. First of all, they're not DOT, so that shouldn't be happening. So I feel like just call before you dig, which you have to mark sometimes on the roadway, should be the only thing we're allowing. You know, kids can draw with chalk on the road, that washes away. There's no need to be painting stuff. No trash, not limited to, but including household waste, furniture, appliances, oil or chemicals of any kind shall be dumped on the roadway, sidewalk, town right of way, or property. So we just had a issue on Firestone Drive last week where we had to take an entire dump truck full of trash that someone had at the cul-de-sac at the end had dumped back there. So we had two guys for about 2.5 hours picking that up, bringing it up to our landfill and disposing of it. Again, on the town taxpayer dollar. So I think on that, you guys could probably embellish on that as to what type of a fine there could be, or something with the police chief about that too, if the person's caught. But I didn't see anything on the record specifically about this in any of our ordinances. An exception to this ordinance is the temporary placement of bulk waste at the curb that is scheduled to be picked up. So people call into my office and ask for bulky pickup, which we do. So obviously they need to put that somewhere, so that would be a call in for a specific address. We'd have the address. So, violation of any of the right-of-way ordinances will result in a $100 fine per offense in conjunction with any of the following. Again, I just put that number in there just as a base number. That could be completely up to the board to decide what they thought was right. Should a resident or contractor cause damage to a roadway or sidewalk in violating this ordinance, they will be subject to pay the costs the town incurs for repairs required, which is, I think, more than fair. The next is violators of the trash ordinance shall be subject to pay the cost of the town incurs for cleanup. Again, you got two guys, 2.5 hours in a dump truck. Taxpayers are eating that bill, and then we have to pay to dispose of it as well.
Thanks, Lee. Any of you guys have any specific questions?
So that last reference to trash ordinance, you're just referring back to number 4, where it says no trash on the roads.
Correct, so we're just talking about should somebody
Just
do that?
internally, yeah.
And then I would, like I said, again, I just put a number in there, but that would really be up to you all to decide what that fair number should be. I mean, it is illegal to dump trash, so that they would have a lawful issue, but we should also make it a ordinance for the town as well, that.
Do you have any idea what other towns charge?
I haven't looked into that yet, being that this was the first time, I just figured we could discuss it. Let's say a town charged $100, but like in this case, it cost us $500. Guess in my opinion, it doesn't really so much matter what another town it costs. Like I think by saying that whatever the cost the town incurs would be really the fine.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't think we can just off the top of my head, I haven't looked at this yet, but I don't think we'd be able to charge for the actual dumping. We wouldn't be able to charge a fine for that because that's a crime, littering, and that's covered by the general statutes, and the state has a statute that deals with that. So, you know, under the Municipal Powers Act, if the state doesn't have to do something, then it falls to us. If the state does something, we don't have the right to add something on additionally to that. But the cleanup part of it, I think, you know, I think that, I'll have to look at it, but to my knowledge, there's nothing on the books in the general statutes with respect to cleanup. So I think that would be, you know, the actual cost incurred makes a lot of sense to me. So I'll take a look at that.
I guess my concern would be that while some of these things may be desirable or worth having some additional conversation about, it seems like we may be getting away from the right-of-way permit and going into other areas. And if we, I think the right-of-way permit issue should be dealt with just as the right-of-way permit issue. If we want to go in other areas, then that should be done separately.
So you view like those add-ons as a separate, yeah?
The snow, you know, not being allowed to be pushed across the roadway, that may be valid, but I don't see how that it relates to the right-of-way permit. Can't paint the roadway, once again, might be valid, not sure how that is implicated with the right-of-way permit. Material on roadways or sidewalks, once again, may be desirable, but I'm not sure that that's correlating to the right-of-way permit.
The materials, sorry, Jerry, the materials are number 3 on the permit itself, under special conditions, specific conditions.
Well, sure, that may be, but is this directed, all of these things directed just to the people, the contractors who need the right-of-way permit, or are you talking the general public?
Oh, you're correct. I agree with you what you're saying, that it could be something separate, but once again, we're talking about a road condition and keeping our roads good, so I figured I'd put it in there. If we need to separate, if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. These are issues that come along kind of with the roads and what we deal with.
There's probably a number of different concerns, but from I think applying a provision like this in the future, if it's tucked within the right-of-way permit, now you're creating a situation where someone can see, that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
This is part of the right-of-way permit, that's not me,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it needs to be separate.
I think it's also worth noting that we do have some ice and snow regulations when it comes to sidewalks, which was something that had been in for a while, and then we had amended it. I don't think this is right on here, because it says 87. My recollection is this was amended in like 2007 or 2010, something like that, to add ice and snow removal from sidewalks, which had been a recommendation of KERMA after some litigation had come down. So there's, there are some places for some of those other things where they'd overlap. So we should, to your point, Jerry, I mean, I think, there may be multiple issues of amending in here as opposed to just one. But I can take a look at it, maybe take a stab at the right-of-way ordinance and get that in front of everybody and go from
Right,
there.
and by looking at these other items, if we try to put that in with the right-of-way permit, then that can get held up until these other items are dealt with or addressed or what have you, whereas we can deal with the right-of-way permit, take care of it, done, move on.
Mhm. Yeah, and, I think you see what the first selectman has been trying to do is close a lot of loopholes that we have in our ordinances. And, the idea is what can we solve now? And we'll have a couple other things coming up for you, in forthcoming meetings as well, so.
Yeah, why don't, Pete, do you have anything before we move on?
Nope.
Okay. Why don't we give some time to consider and see what Derek comes up with, and maybe also take a look at other towns and what they're charging.
Okay. Can do that.
Thanks,
Lee,
Lee.
could you send me that add-on? I'm not sure I got that.
Yeah, I did, but I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
no
must have
problem.
missed it, I'm sorry.
No problem.
All right.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Might as well stay up here, because item number 6 is discussion and approval of landfill policy. So I made the recommended edit as suggested in the previous meeting. You also received correspondence sent by resident Dave Gothier in regards to the landfill policy and his opinion of potential conflict with charter. Derek's here with us along with Lee and landfill lead man Joe Duvall, who's also here, so thank you for coming out tonight. And you guys have any other further questions, recommendations in regards to this policy? I'd also like to get Attorney Donnelly's opinion on the correspondence we received from Mr. Gothier, so I'll open it up to the board first, or Derek, if you wanted to, if you had a moment to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, I can start, I'm sort of happy to. There are a couple of points, and Mr. Gothier does a good job of bringing up issues that perhaps have not been considered. So, he brought up specifically 22A 635 with respect to electronic devices being collected, and then, some of the curbside pickup questions, that we had dealt with as well, and also additional bins. So on those three, I mean, I don't think the policy has, needs anything additional to comply with those three things. The other big one that he brought up is, the idea that the ordinance requires access, and it actually says no permit fee is required for residents qualified to access the bulky waste section of the landfill. And to the extent that this might conflict with that, I think it's a very simple solution. So my recommendation is at the end of section 1 of the landfill and transfer station policy, simply to add a sentence that says, nothing in this section shall prohibit a resident from accessing the bulky waste area of the landfill and transfer station. So that way it's nice and clean, everyone knows that they can access it and it doesn't have to deal with it. So, that doesn't mean that if you come in with a huge trailer that's gotta go across the scale, that it can't go across the scale. You can still access it, but if you gotta comply with the rest of the policy, you gotta comply with the rest of the policy. So, I think with that simple fix, we address the potential conflict, and we can move on from there.
So Derek, you were suggesting putting it at the end of section number 1?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So it would read, the fee is $25 per year, non-prorated, and nothing in this section shall prohibit a resident from accessing the bulky waste area of the landfill and transfer station.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Joe, since you're here, I mean, do you feel this policy covers some of the issues you see at the landfill, since you're there every day, and this kind of came up with you and Chris to begin with?
Yeah, so Chris Matchik and myself sat down and with yourself and Derek, we kind of talked about a few things that were issues. And in my tenure, about 10 years now is in the Public Works, 12 years with the High Department and all, taking a big role up there with trying to foresee issues with Chris Matchik and now Lee. And I think we're in the right direction. With all this, the census that I'm getting from this is we really want to keep people honest and keep residents informed on rules and policies as they change. I don't have a handout to give them if they ask for policies. I just have what we have as rules and fees. So it makes it difficult for me to give them the opportunity to discuss these if I don't have something to show them. So what this is doing is this is giving me and my employees and our director and all the guys something to rely on to say, listen, this is where it's spun out. You as a resident can adhere to these rules, these policies, or this is what will happen, whether there's fines or being relinquishing them their permits. All in all, Director Corbett, myself, just want to keep the residents happy, keep our employees happy, keep myself not going crazy up there on a Saturday. But I think all this here is a phenomenal start, and it's going to take implementation and then moving forward months to months to months when it slows down in the wintertime, kind of re-looking at it, in my opinion, and then go from there.
You say it's a good start, so why don't we get to the finish? What needs to be added?
So there's parts of this when it comes to just from my personal experience at the transfer station. Residents are aware of these policies. They have been talking, amongst themselves to myself, and when they come to me with questions, I have to say, well, we have to refer to the Board of Selectmen meetings and to the minutes and all that, and they do their research. They come back to me and they say, well, this was discussed, and then it again puts it on me on a Saturday on top of everything else from my job requirements to then answer a 30-minute conversation about permitting and how much fees are. So for me, this is a good start, and then come July 1st, when we implement it, we can then take a few months to kind of look back at everything, in my opinion, and then, let's say December, January, decide if we want to improve, change anything, if there's any issues that residents bring up to the board here that, Derek Donnelly has to address, or so on and so forth.
Okay, so you're saying there's no additions currently, though, that you would to see?
I looked at this just this evening, so I'd have to look over it again in the next couple of days, and if I could have some time, but if it needs to be approved tonight, I can add those afterwards if you'd like.
Okay. Does the board have any?
Sure, so, Joe, first of all, what's your position up at the landfill?
So my position is lead man for landfill. I've been with the town for 12 years, and in my current position as lead man about 6 months, but I've been actively the role since December of 2020, when our previous lead man went out on sick leave and then retired.
Okay. So one of the concerns that has been expressed to me, or that I've heard about, is the difficulty for the folks up at the landfill when we have a person who comes into the landfill, wants to utilize the landfill, and they've got some kind of waste, and they say it's from their house. And it's some kind of bulky waste, commercial waste, something like that. And there's some folks that do that very infrequently and reasonably could be coming from their house. And then there's other folks that are coming in regularly, and it seems like, you know, how many times can you remodel that bathroom, you know, kind of a thing. Is that something that you're seeing up there?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Can you tell us about it? Very much so, so tell us about
Yeah,
that.
so when a resident arrives to the landfill and they have a pickup truck or a small trailer, and better an SUV full of material, demolition from a bathroom like you expressed, windows from their home, sheetrock, outdoor landscaping debris, you know, we simply approach the resident. If we don't recognize them, because a lot of people are regulars, we say, how you doing, sir? You know, sir, miss, IDs please, yeah, no problem, here you go. What do you have today? We express, you know, everything has to go transfer out of here, so there's a cost associated with it. So if you're doing any kind of side work, commercial work, please, if you could just let us know, and then we'll put you on the scale. Most of the time, it's no, it's from my house, I'm just finished cleaning up the barn, I'm just redoing a bathroom, something like that. It is a daily battle there with that, and there are a few people that we've had multiple run-ins with, where all I can do is just simply ask where it's coming from, and then they express their home, or they say, oh, I'm helping my neighbor out, or I just, you know, got tied up with something. And I have to just, you know, in the back of my mind, keep that going. So if they come in 3-4 times in a week, 4 or 5 times in a month, then I can say, okay, this is an ongoing project. Or is there building permits that are required for this type of work? How do I access that information? Who do I call for that? And then what ends up happening is then the town has to eat the disposal costs, because they're not paying their share, as whether they're commercial or for hire, or just some guy on Facebook looking to do a dump run for somebody. You know, a little extra cash in there, so.
Now, you mentioned that this is a daily battle for you, so that sounds as though there's a large number of folks going up to the landfill that you believe are engaged in looking to dump waste that they should be paying for, that your impression is that they should be paying for it, that they're not actually paying for it by saying that it's coming from their house?
Correct, yes.
All right. Do you have any sense of how many folks are regularly engaged in this kind of thing?
I would say, off the top of my head, I can think about a dozen.
Mhm.
I may not know them by name, but I know them
Yep.
when they come in with their vehicle. I'm better with vehicles that people drive, and, you know, the types of trailers they use, and equipment versus their names, because on some days it's 600 people come in there on a Saturday, and it's a lot of people say hello to and goodbye to, so I just try to keep a mental note. I also take pictures on the phone that we have provided, and I kind of revert back to that to show Director Lee, hey, this guy came in, this situation arose, this is how I handled it. I sent him a couple that he referenced a meeting or two ago on, guy posted on Facebook, and sure enough, the next day, he's at the landfill, and I say, hey man, what's going on here? And he was like, oh, I just got a big basement. And
All right,
I have to just smile and wave, because I'm not in a position to, you know, make any accusations.
Understood. And your last name is Duval?
Duval, correct.
All right, so, Mr. Duval, now, under this policy here, any vehicle with a commercial plate, any vehicle that has commercial lettering on the vehicle, any vehicle with a gross vehicle weight of 6,000 or more pounds, that they all have to pay,
Correct.
right? Okay. And a vehicle with a gross vehicle weight of 6,000 or more pounds, would a 150 pickup truck fall within that category?
So, yes,
Okay.
my pickup truck's a 1,500, 6,200 pounds GVW.
Okay.
Correct.
So the definition here, section 5 of the policy, seems like that would address in large part the concern that you're raising?
In part, correct. The other part to that is, section 1 says residents obtaining a permit. So a resident who owns an F-150, from my understanding of this, would only be considered a commercial vehicle if it's 6,000 or more with commercial plates. If you refer to section 5.3, correct? Yeah, so section 5.3 says, and any vehicle with a GVW of 6,000 or more with commercial plates. So your resident-owned personal use F-150 is over 6,000 GVW, but it does not require commercial plates because it's not used for commercial purposes. It's just to get you back and forth to work, kids in soccer practice. That would not entail them being charged over the scale. It would only be if the truck was registered with commercial plates, which my assumption is to a business, to a company making money for profit, and then the vehicle being over 6,000 GVW, which most commercial guys would have trucks or vans.
Right, so I don't have any other questions for Mr. Duval. I don't know if.
If I can jump in on the end of
I
Jerry's.
will have for Mr. Corbett.
So what you're saying is a resident with a 1 ton or larger won't have to go over the scale?
1 ton or larger vehicles with dump case capabilities.
All right, so
So if
like my pickup truck would be okay, because it doesn't have a dump capability.
I believe so, yeah, you're
All
right.
right, because number 17 says any resident with a 1 ton or larger stake body or flatbed. Mine has a flatbed on it.
It would be like no sides on the bed,
Oh,
just like
okay.
completely flat that you could put material to hang on the
And trailer.
sides.
So let's say I attach a trailer to my truck.
Mhm.
I would have to go over the scale.
Only if it was a dual axle trailer, because dual axle trailers' volumes can be a lot larger by weight and by size than a single axle trailer could. So a single axle trailer behind a pickup truck like yours would be totally reasonable within the permit. You have to acquire the permit as a resident, and then only if your truck had a dual axle trailer or fit the number 5, 1 through 4 descriptions.
Okay, I just, that number 17, it kind of is, it's confusing me
Yep.
with the section, what do we say, 5, where describing what commercial vehicles are.
So,
I-
yep.
I don't think we need to have section 17 in there, do we?
So if I may speak on that.
Yeah.
So section 17 more is for like, let's say yourself, Selectman Hill, if you rented or you borrowed somebody's dump truck
Yeah.
that fit this, you as a resident can come, but once you use the vehicle specified in 17, then you'd have to go over the scale. So we do see residents that will say, hey, my buddy's just got this dump truck and I'm just doing brush, I got 1 load. Sorry, unfortunately you have to go over the scale, but if you would use your personally owned vehicle that falls outside of 17, then you would not have to. Which we do see. We see residents come up all the time.
Yeah.
Vehicles that fit this, stake bodies, dump trucks, and it's a one-time thing, and the town's gonna eat whatever weight they have because we have to pay to dispose of ourselves.
Okay. That was my only, I just found 17 confusing with 5, but I don't like the fact that, like, if a resident has a ton of brush and wants to borrow someone's dump truck or a bigger truck to get rid of it in 1 trip instead of taking 5, he could do the 5 and not get charged.
Mhm.
But if he does it in 1, we're gonna charge him. I just don't like that. I think people pay enough for something like that. But other than that, I think everything else seems to be all right.
I think part of the problem is that we're just not gonna, be able to cover everything, so we're covering people that abuse this the most, and I question how many people actually come up with that kind of, what you're talking about. I mean, Joe, I'm just curious, like, maybe I missed it, but what is your solution to these contractors doing this, abusing it? You're there all the time, what's your solution?
That's a tough one. I really haven't had the time to prep on that answer to that question for tonight. But I can definitely get back to you if you need that, but at this time, I don't have the solution. I think getting the permitting in place is a start, and then working off of how we see the permitting going for contractors, and then ultimately implementing what we decide or the board decides from our information we give you.
So like a daily problem like this all the time, you've never thought once, boy, I could do this and this would stop it?
I can't speak to saying that I've never thought about it, but at this time here with what I've been presented with tonight to review, I haven't an answer now.
And with this policy, will you have to have someone in the shack monitoring the scale at all times?
If,
Or will they have to run back and forth?
it would be a run back and forth, that's what we do currently. We have 2 full-time, 1 part-time employee. When you enter the facility, there's 17 different areas you can go to, the scale being one of them, and that being the longest process, because we have to weigh in, collect information, just check the load, describe where everything goes, make sure they follow the rules, and then, ultimately weigh them out and then charge them for the materials.
And then Lee, let's say we pass it, and then we find out, yeah, we got a lot of people using the scale and this, that, do you have the ability with staff to add staff or add another part-timer in there on the weekends? Maybe at least on Saturday, I would guess Saturday is probably your busiest day.
Well, our budget's already done for upcoming fiscal year, so, probably not to add somebody, but again, possibly we could add a part-timer. That, I think we would have the money in the budget to do, and then, between 2 full-time and 2 part-time people, I think we would more than cover it. Also, I just wanted to go back to one thing that, you said, Selectman Hill, about the fee and the cost. So I've checked with, Summers, Enfield, East Granby, and Windsor Locks for their fees. We are by far the cheapest, per pound to get rid of stuff and for our permit fee itself. Just to give you an example, the town of Summers charges $200 a ton for bulky waste, to get rid of that. We're looking at a fee of $120 a ton.
Yeah, no, it wasn't so much the cost of the fee, it was the cost for, if a guy wanted to borrow someone's truck,
Right,
it was gonna get charged $6 a pound.
yep.
But if he has a small truck or borrows someone else's truck and takes 6 trips that he could have done in one, he doesn't get charged at all.
And I do understand.
That's the part that I don't like.
I do understand that, but my feeling with this was that I was tasked with trying to eliminate as much as we can up there of people taking advantage of the rest of the taxpayers in town. I don't feel that there's one way that we can, well, there is one way, and I think that's the last option of, stopping, but I don't think it's gonna be fair to a whole lot of residents. So I think this is a way to get it started. I think what Selectman Mahoney said when I first brought this to the board, once I was tasked with figuring out some stuff for you, that this policy would be passed at some point, but be able to be changed by the Board of Selectmen as needed in the future. I think that's fantastic, because I think that lets us get this trial running. Let's get this up and running so the town's not losing money anymore, because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' money that the town's losing every time we get somebody in there dropping a load off and we have to haul it out and pay for it. Right now, we're actually not even really truly breaking even, because our cost to get rid of the material plus fuel, we're actually losing money on every ton of material that comes into there right now. And our fees will be going up. I have a fee schedule here of what our town's gonna be charged until June of 2027. Every year our fee goes up. So, again, we're still on the very low side for every surrounding town here with our permit fee.
I agree.
Okay.
But, see, my problem, I look at the bigger picture.
Yep.
If there's 1,500 people a month go to the landfill, and there's 12 that abuse it, and they go 3 times each, that's, 45 times out of 1,000, someone's abusing it,
I understand.
Those other 950 are residents paying taxes. That's where my head's at,
I get where you're coming
Yeah.
from, but I feel.
And I get where you're coming
Yeah.
from, I totally agree with the
I just
price.
see Joe struggle up there, and I believe it's a much more than what the numbers you just gave, and you may have just been giving me an example, but I believe from what, the amount of times Joe talks to me about this, that the amount of people and the amount that they bring, so even, let's just say it was one guy who comes 3 times a month, but he's bringing, an entire trailer heaped and a truck heaped every time he comes in.
Yeah.
That could cost the town hundreds of dollars every time it comes in, so, we're not, with this policy is not gonna stop somebody who does not have commercial plates and has an F-150, 250, or 350 truck and a single axle trailer. This does not stop them from abusing our system. To your point, Selectman Wall, that, asking Joe, how do we fix it? I think that's a great question, but I think that the way we start to fix it is to get this thing passed. I mean, this is now the 5th time it's been in front of the board. Let's get it passed. We were looking for July 1st. We want the residents to at least have time to review this and know what the rules are gonna be, for Joe to have time to talk to people up there and kind of go over it, because people are gonna have questions. They're gonna read it, interpret the way they wanna interpret it, ask him questions, ask the other people like Jack, who's here from the landfill, ask Clint, who works up at the landfill. And we wanna have time to have those questions answered for them, not just, hey, this starts tomorrow and, we need you to get your permit and.
Yep.
So, and then if we find out, and even if in 2 months we have a lot of issues with it, we can absolutely, I can ask Selectman Wall to please put this back onto the agenda and discuss the issues with you and let you all make a decision on where you'd like to move forward, but I think now we need to get this implemented. We're already in May.
Jerry, you got something? Okay.
Sure, so, Lee, you mentioned that you've done some research on the other towns. This policy proposes a $25 annual resident fee. What fees are you seeing charged by other towns?
Okay, so, let's see, the town of Summers charges $35 annual fee. Let's see. East Granby is $75. Town of Granby doesn't have one on here. Enfield is $80. And Windsor Locks doesn't actually run a landfill like we do. They have trash company do all their pickups on the road, which costs them a fortune, but, so theirs isn't kind of.
All right, so the fee that we're charging or proposing to charge is the lowest of any of the surrounding towns?
That is
what you were
correct.
saying?
That is
Okay.
100% correct.
All right, and what are the other towns charging per ton for bulky waste?
So Summers is charging $200 a ton. And then Enfield is charging 10 cents a pound. We're at 6 cents a pound.
Say that again?
Enfield is charging 10 cents per pound.
So what is that per ton?
$2,200. So they're the same as.
$200?
They're the
Okay.
same as Summers. East Granby, which has the East Granby's amount is $80 a year for a permit. And their bulky waste fee, I don't even see a number on here.
I don't think they have a scale, so they
Yeah,
can't.
so they're not charging a bulky waste fee on the scale, they're charging per piece. So if they're charging $20 a couch, $10 a chair, depends on what you bring and how much that's gonna be. And then Granby, again, they must not have a scale.
Paynes does all their pickups.
Yeah. And then Windsor Locks has everything picked up, so they're paying.
And isn't there a company, Babylon, what do they charge per ton?
Babylon was at 180 previously, a ton, and they have a 1-ton minimum.
What do
So,
you mean previously? What are they charging now?
that's, it's been 180, but I believe it's going up because ours is going up, in July. So when ours goes
Theirs
up,
is,
when our fee, what we charge, get charged to dump there, when our fee goes up, that means their fee's going up altogether.
I'm not following. So if we charge a fee at our landfill?
No.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, maybe, so we have a set fee with them on how much we pay per year. That goes up.
That's not my question. I'm asking about a contractor or resident who goes to Babylon. What do they pay per ton?
$180 a ton.
I'm sorry?
$180 a ton.
All right. So the 120 that we're proposing is less than any of the other places that have a scale,
That is correct.
and it's not even close.
Correct.
All right. What do the other towns do in terms of dealing with bulky waste? Okay, so we've got a scheme here that attempts to allow residents to dump bulky waste there without a fee, and then there's an attempt here to charge commercial vehicles and so forth. What do the other towns do? Do they charge everybody? Do they do something like this? What do they do?
Every other town on here has a bulky waste fee for everything. Furniture, pallets, wood, fencing, mattresses, toppers, bedding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're all like that. This town has bulky waste. They just put non-yard waste. Everything's charged at 10 cents, which is $200 a ton. So there's everybody's charging, every other town is charging everybody. We're the only town that does not charge for our bulky waste for residents.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, all these surrounding towns allow folks to dump household waste, but any bulky waste, whether you're a contractor, resident, anybody, you pay by the pound.
That is correct.
And if everybody paid by the pound, that would completely relieve any problem that folks at the landfill have with someone claiming that it's coming from their house and they don't want to pay a fee.
That is correct.
If I may speak, I think that was what we don't want to see happen, because then we'd have to install a second truck scale, like a $200,000 investment there. You'd have to re-engineer the facility because you have to have one in, one out. Right now, our way it's set up, we have one in and the vehicle have to come back out that same scale. So if you were charging everybody, you'd have way more use of the scale per vehicle that comes in there every day, all day long. You have to really think about if that was like the ultimatum of the fix.
So
I
you
think
would,
this needs more thought. I don't think this is ready to go forward.
so you would recommend that we
Well,
consider charging everybody like every other
Exactly, I mean,
town?
if all the other towns
Yeah.
are charging, first of all, it's a ton easier than a two-page policy with 17 or however many paragraphs. And it's simple. You bring household trash, there's no fee. Bulky waste, you pay a fee. We're not, it's 6 cents a pound. We're not talking about a gigantic fee here. So at least I think that's something to be considered. What I'm hearing for the first time is that this would be a impossible thing to do, or would involve a gigantic expense. You know, I don't know, it sounds like something that needs further investigation.
Selectman Mahoney, I have just a question about that. So previously we said, what Derek was talking about, what Mr. Gothier had brought up, our ordinance now allows people to dump bulky waste free of charge. We can't charge for them according to the town ordinance, correct? Isn't that what you said, Attorney Donnelly?
No, it actually says access to the area.
Okay.
But I do think that if we were gonna make a substantial change, we need to address the ordinance itself and make some changes there. If I could offer something, having been involved in this for more time than I care to remember, I think we're missing a big component here, and that we do have a landfill management commission that's created by ordinance, and that operated for about a year and then stopped, right? And we still have it on the books. We didn't get rid of that through the ordinance review project. It's still an ordinance for the landfill management commission. And while it is difficult to find people to run and volunteer for commissions, as you all know, it's not the worst idea here to reactivate something like this. Get something in place now so we can stop the bleeding, but then charge the landfill management commission, reinstate it, charge them with coming up with, a long-term view of this. The idea behind the landfill management commission, and I believe I was like on Board of Finance at the time, was really about the long-term planning for the dump. And when we're talking about closures, this is not an unlimited resource here.
Exactly, 100%.
And Jerry's right. I mean, if we're going to not charge when other towns are charging, what do you think is gonna happen? It's exactly what Joe's seeing at the landfill. So I think there's a balancing part of this that we really need to deal with, which is how do we support Joe and the guys up there who do a phenomenal job with a lot of people. It's the people, you might not appreciate this, but more often than not, on a regular weekly basis, more people visit the landfill from town, more residents visit the landfill than visit town hall. right? It really is, these guys really are the face of the town and are doing a good job and probably need a little help there, to do it even better. So, you know, can we get something like this in place now and then figure out a way to address it moving forward? And that's, you know, that's a critique you've heard from members of the public, that we really need to look at this over a longer period of time. You've heard it from Joe, you've heard it from Lee. So, I mean, that would be, you know, look, I'm far outside the scope of the legal opinion here, but since it's in the ordinances, I think it's worthy to bring up and ask you to consider.
Thanks, Derek. Why don't we give it to the next meeting, give it some more consideration, but I think getting the permit set up and the fee structure set up is definitely should be top on the list. Don't worry about the rest and take into consideration what Emily's saying. Have you have anything you wanna add?
I was just gonna ask Joe if you could have any suggestions or additions for the next meeting, you know, to let us know beforehand so that we can see those as well that you think, if any, to add to the draft
Okay.
policy. That would be great.
You got it, will do.
Okay, thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7 is discussion and approval of unauthorized use and occupancy fee ordinance, permit refund cancellation policy, and reinspection policy. Last meeting, we discussed these two policies in one ordinance edition with building official in Bennington. It didn't appear as though there were too many questions or recommendations for edits, so do any board members have anything further to add or comment on? I would entertain a motion. You guys are so moved.
Okay, so this is Kathy Harrington. I'm gonna move that we approve the unauthorized use and occupancy fee ordinance, permit refund / cancellation policy, and reinspection policy,
May I suggest that you refer the ordinance to town meeting?
and refer to the town meeting, the ordinance.
Thanks.
Thank you, Derek.
All right, the motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 8 is call town meeting for fiscal year 24-25 budget.
Okay, legal notice. Notice of annual budget meeting 2024 through 2025, Town of Suffield. Notice is hereby given that the annual budget meeting of the inhabitants of the Town of Suffield, Connecticut, qualified to vote in town meeting, will be held at the auditorium in Suffield Middle School, 350 Mountain Road, Suffield, Connecticut, on Wednesday, May 8, 2024, at 7 p.m. for the following purposes, to wit. One, to consider and act upon the report and recommendations of the Board of Finance and to make such appropriations in connection therewith as may be advisable. 2, to consider and act upon the use and expenditure of American Recovery Plan Act funds as recommended by the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance. To consider and act upon a motion authorizing the Board of Finance to print and distribute explanatory text concerning the budget if the budget is petitioned to referendum. Such text may not advocate approval or disapproval of the budget and must conform to the Connecticut General Statute, Section 9-369B, dated at Suffield, Connecticut, this first day of May 2024. Board of Selectmen Colin Mall, First Selectman Milt Chaffetz, Selectman Kathleen Harrington, Selectman Peter Hill, Selectman Jeremiah Mahoney, Selectman.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, moving on to, did you want to add anything?
No, Jerry caught
Okay.
it. There was an earlier draft of it. I think the last draft didn't get in there, but
Apologies for that. Thank you.
yeah, he got it right.
Okay.
So,
All right,
you should vote.
all right, you want to vote?
Yeah, we probably should.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Any
opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 9 is public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? All right. Is there any public comment on Zoom? I see Mr. Gauthier's hand. Go ahead, Mr. Gauthier, if you could just say your name and address for the record.
Yes, Dave Gauthier, 3219 Phelps Road. I apologize for not being there tonight. I would have come if I knew the extent of the discussion on the landfill policy. I will say that you need to get the permits in place for July 1st and start there. The bulky waste, I can remember going there when the landfill was privately owned and it was totally different. And then the town bought it. And ever since then, the only requirement was that whatever you brought had to come from the town of Suffield. There's nothing in the policy that says the bulky waste has to come from the town of Suffield. It is in the ordinance, and I think it should be brought forward into the policy so that everyone knows it right up front. And what I find interesting is that I see sort of a bias here in that it's a bias against people who have a big truck. It's not about the vehicle that brings the bulky waste. It's about what's in the back of the truck. What difference does it make whether you have a big truck or a little truck? It's the same bulky waste. It's still from Suffield. And if you get the blight ordinance passed, wouldn't it be a great thing to have all of that blight brought to the landfill? Does it matter whether it's a big truck or a little truck? Does it matter that I pay someone to bring it and then you charge them and they charge me? What difference does it make? You're making it way too complicated. It only has to be bulky waste from Suffield. That's all that matters. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom? All right, seeing none, we will move to item number 10 is selectmen updates. Real quick, we've officially hired a finance director and library director. We expect the finance director to start June 1st and the library director within a month. I want to thank the Sustainable Suffield Task Force for their efforts in coordinating our spring town-wide cleanup, and thank you to all the residents that came out to help clean up the town. The Sustainable Suffield Task Force is also having a town-wide tag sale on the 11th, so basically you can register your home for the tag sale. You can go on the map on the town website and see where everyone's having one. We have the installation of rapid flashing pedestrian signals. That's begun by the Academy. One by Marburn will be next, and we hope to have the remaining approved by the state soon. We put out the RFP for the radio project we've been discussing for the past half year. I want to congratulate Pete LeClerc and the Parks and Rec Department on a successful Dancing with the Stars fundraising event last week, and also thank the volunteers who helped and all the people that participated and came out to support the Bowling Buddies program. And just a friendly reminder that we continue to look for volunteers for the Charter Revision Commission. We'll have to appoint members by the next Board of Selectmen meeting. So do you guys have anything you guys want to share? No? All right. Moving on to item number 11, executive session, litigation.
I move we go into executive session to discuss litigation and invite the town attorney to attend.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Recording stopped.
Upstairs.
Yeah, we're all set.
How many weeks out of surgery?
This is what I was
12.
looking
12? Yes,
for.
sir.
Lip balm, I left it here.
3-month anniversary. I'm looking pretty good.
No, there.
Bye, Derek.
Thanks, have a good night. Just gotta figure out how to do this video.
Recording in progress.
All right, we're coming out of executive session, and Pete, 13. Item number 12 is action on executive session. There is none. And item number 13, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks.